Epistemology Nozick's most influential contributions to philosophy outside of political theory have been in epistemology and the metaphysics of personal identity. In the case of the former, he is best known for his version of an externalist theory of knowledge, developed in his second book, Philosophical Explanations 1981. Traditional theories of knowledge hold that a knower S knows a proposition P if and only if S believes P is true, and S is justified in believing P. The third condition has always been the most problematic. The logical possibility of skeptical scenarios in which the would-be knower is the hapless victim of an omnipotent, omniscient, and deceiving Cartesian demon, or a brain in a vat hooked up by mad scientists to a virtual reality supercomputer feeding it non-stop hallucinations, threaten to make the justification of almost any belief impossible. Examples of the sort made famous by Edmund Gettier wherein S has a justified true belief, say, a belief that it is now 5 o'clock, based on S's glance at a nearby clock, that nevertheless does not plausibly amount to knowledge, say, because the clock is broken, and just by chance happens to be displaying the correct time, also cast doubt on the adequacy of the tradition analysis of knowledge, whatever one says about the threat of skepticism. These supposed inadequacies in the traditional view of knowledge are often said by its critics to stem from its internalism, the assumption that the factors that warrant S claim to knowledge must be factors of which S is aware, factors internal to the set of his consciously held beliefs. But these inadequacies can, it is argued, be remedied by adopting an externalist perspective instead, on which the factors that warrant S's belief, and make it genuine knowledge rather than mere belief, may well be factors of which S is entirely unaware, and which are external to his conscious cognitive processes. One such factor emphasized by reliabilist versions of externalism might be a beliefs having been produced by a reliable belief producing mechanism, a mechanism of the existence and operations of which S might be utterly ignorant. Nozick's unique contribution to the externalist approach is to suggest that the conditions that make S's true belief that P count as knowledge are the counterfactuals. A. That were P not true, S would not believe it, the variation condition, and B. That were P still true in somewhat different circumstances, S would still believe it and would not believe that not P, the adherence condition. A belief that fulfills these conditions is one that, in Nozick's expression, tracks the truth. S's belief that it is 5 o'clock in the example above would fail to meet these conditions, and thus fails to track the truth. Had it in fact been 4:55 when S looked at the broken clock, he would still have believed that it is 5 o'clock, and had the clock been stopped at 4:55 instead, S would not believe that it is 5 o'clock, and indeed would believe that it is not 5 o'clock. Nozick applies this analysis to answering skepticism as follows. We ought to concede to the skeptic that S cannot know that he is not in fact a brain in a vat, for his belief that he isn't is not one that tracks the truth, since the variation condition can't be met. If it were not true that S is not a brain in a vat, S would still believe he isn't. But though this might appear to give away the store to skepticism, in fact it does not. For what the skeptic claims to threaten are everyday beliefs such as, e.g. S's belief that he is driving in his car, for obviously, if S is actually a brain in a vat, he isn't really driving in his car, for obviously if S is actually a brain in a vat, he isn't really driving in his car. Nozick argues that S can indeed know that he is driving and know that if he is driving then he isn't a brain in a vat, even though he cannot know that he isn't a brain in a vat. For it may well be that S's belief that he is driving tracks the truth. It might, for instance, be produced by a reliable belief-forming process even if his belief that he isn't a brain in a vat doesn't, and if so, then it is at least possible, contra the skeptic, to know, for example, that one is driving in one's car. In taking this position, Nozick famously, and controversially, denies what is known among epistemologists as the closure principle, the principle that if S knows that P and that P entails Q, then S knows that Q